What is happening, everybody? Coming to you today with another piece in the puzzle of the Maxwell trial. I found this on. I found this after searching around for a while. To be honest with you, trying to find some new information after the closing arguments and everything had wrapped up. I happened upon this piece from PBS News Hour. Haven't seen it, obviously. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go ahead and jump over here and load it up and just let her run. I'm not going to comment or anything like that. I'm going to let it play through its entirety. And then at the end, then we'll come back. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them up in the chat. And then once it's over, then we'll deal with those as well. So let's go ahead and get over here and let's get ourselves started. Here we go.
As we reported earlier, the jury began deliberations today in the federal sex trafficking and conspiracy trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, the former girlfriend of the late disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. John Yang brings us up to date on the trial.
Judy, Maxwell faces 6 charges that allege she facilitated Epstein's abuse and trafficking of underage teens. Epstein died in federal jail in 2019 before he himself could stand trial. This case involves 4 of the dozens of girls Epstein was accused of trafficking and abusing. Moira Penza is a former assistant U.S. attorney who led the prosecution that resulted in the 2019 sex trafficking conviction of NXIVM cult leader Keith Raniere. She's now a partner at the firm Wilkinson Steckloff. Moira, thanks so much for being with us. This trial gave the 4 survivors who are involved in this case the opportunity that was taken away from them when Epstein died. You've worked, that's to have a day in court. Now, you've worked on similar cases, high-profile cases. What does it mean for these survivors, these women, to be able to go into court and tell their story?
You know, John, I think it is really important that people get to see victims of sexual violence have the ability to seek justice through our criminal justice system. It's very different than some of the other means of speaking out that we have seen in the past. With the hashtag #MeToo movement, we've seen a lot on social media, and there are benefits to that. But there is something about seeing individuals brought to justice within the criminal justice system where they're able to actually face the people who did victimize them, actually be able to testify, withstand cross-examination, that brings a lot of credibility to their testimony, and when done properly, hopefully will be a way of really preventing this sort of sexual abuse in the future and deterring this type of behavior in a very meaningful way.
The prosecution spent a little less time than had been anticipated. They called fewer witnesses than had been expected. Tell us what the prosecution case was, and also talk to us about what apparent decision to streamline the case.
As a trial attorney, it is really important to streamline your case. And that's something that takes a lot of discipline. It's really important to make sure, as the prosecutor, that you are sticking to the actual charges against Maxwell and where she was most directly involved. And so I really think that was a conscious decision on behalf of the prosecution to really highlight those areas where Maxwell had the most involvement with these victims. So we saw that they really had their theme of Maxwell as this enabler in chief, this partner in crime, who was really recruiting and grooming these young girls for Epstein. And we see that they really were consistent throughout their examinations in maintaining that theme and really presenting Maxwell at the top of this sex abuse pyramid, as they described it.
And then what about the defense? They were trying to push that she was the scapegoat since Epstein was no longer available. What else did the defense argue?
The primary defense was really that this isn't about Maxwell, that Maxwell was separated from a lot of these crimes, that she may have essentially had a bad boyfriend, but that she didn't necessarily know what was going on behind closed doors. And that's why we see that the prosecution really focused on where was Maxwell? The times when she was actually in the room, when she was actually a participant, when she's actually getting payments towards the end of Jeffrey Epstein's life to really connect those dots. So we definitely saw the defense trying to separate her from that. We also saw what has become quite common in these sexual abuse cases of attacking the victims. And we saw that throughout the cross examinations. And what we have seen time and time again is that that often backfires and that juries often react very negatively to that sort of cross examination. So here we did see that there were various attacks of varying kinds. So whether there was an incentive, a financial incentive, that's how many of the victims were cross-examined. But then we also saw cross-examination about issues of memory. Was there some sort of conspiracy to, once Epstein was dead, to implicate Maxwell instead?
And Maxwell did not take the stand in her own defense, which she's not required to do. And the judge instructs the jury not to read anything into that. But we've had a couple of high profile cases recently where high profile defendants have taken the stand. Is that, do you think, even though they're told not to think about it, does that have any effect on a juror?
I do believe that jurors follow the instructions as given to them. Do I think as human beings, there can always be a subconscious effect? Of course. But I do think the Maxwell case is very different than some of the most recent high profile cases we've seen where defendants made the unusual decision to take the stand. Because far more often than not, it is what we see with Maxwell, where the defendant does not take the stand and exercises their right not to incriminate themselves, right? Once you take the stand, then you have essentially waived that right, and you can be cross-examined about everything that has already been presented during the trial, as well as additional bad acts that could go to your credibility. We're not talking about a securities fraud-based crime like we have in the Holmes trial. We're not talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, where you essentially need to take the stand in order to show self-defense. This is a case where Maxwell has already testified under oath previously. She would have to contend with the testimony that she had given before. And so I don't think it was, I thought that she likely would not take the stand and that this was much more consistent with what we typically would see her being advised by her attorneys to do.
Former federal prosecutor Moira Penza, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very nice. I like the way that she wrapped that up. And that's something that we talked about a little bit yesterday was the when the defense goes in and tries to vilify the victim, that you're in a jury of your peers in that deliberation room. It's not going to take much gasoline to start a fire when somebody goes, well, if these guys actually had a case, maybe they'd have some evidence. The fact that they, this is my hope. Let's say my hope is that they will come to that logical conclusion that they really don't have any defense for this woman. She took a butt ton of freaking money. She was involved with this guy's year after year after year. She's from a wealthy, wealthy, wealthy family. She is a socialite. She has never had a job. Okay, this woman was not impoverished, and she was not without resources and not without people who would have literally crossed the continent, crossed the world to come and get her. Okay, so that's why this is not a situation of someone who has to stay there for financial reasons or whatever. She stayed there because she wanted to. This is the tip of the iceberg. They would have, and I think this woman may kind of refer to it as well, that the defense's argument was you're only coming after Maxwell because Epstein is dead. Well, bullcrap. They'd have been coming after her next. He would have been the start, and then she still would have been involved because she was still recruiting and she was still training and brainwashing these girls. What it is called brainwashing. They used to call it brainwashing. They could get new terms now. The core effect is brainwashing. So there are more people. There's more going on than just this. They said there's 4 girls in this trial, but there were dozens of victims that they have access to. I am going to find out when this trial wraps up. There is going to be a period of time that has to pass, and then when everything is put out in transcription form, I'm going to do the best that I can to acquire as much of that as we can, and I'll sift through it. A lot of it, but I mean, just the evidence, go through the testimonies that were submitted into evidence that may not have been presented during the trial, and see what is really going on, because this is just the start of it. Okay, this trial is just the start of it. There's a whole other category that, from what I have been hearing, that Epstein, not necessarily Maxwell, but that Epstein was involved in, with a lot of other rich, famous, very powerful people from all walks of life and both sides of the aisles. And it's just absolutely freaking disgusting. If a tenth of what I've heard is accurate, if a tenth of it is accurate, it will make you vomit. So I'm debating on how deep to go into this, but I have to see it with my own eyes. I'm not going to rely on another YouTuber. I'm not going to rely. I need to read it for myself. I need to read for myself, so you'll know it for yourself. Any documents I get will be PDF'd or whatever, I'm sure, and then I will have them linked, if not even literally screen shared, as we go through and read them. So pray for me, folks. This is a deep hole, and nobody's talking about it. I just, the hell's wrong with people, man? Sorry. I don't know why this doesn't matter. Are we just all a bunch of pieces of shit that we don't care about what happens these people do to these kids, these babies? But no, we'll get our freaking tit in a ring over something that ain't gonna mean a hill of shit in 2 weeks. But no, you'll flip out over that. But this kind of crap goes on, and you can't even get news agencies to carry it. Try to find this crap. Try to get on YouTube and try to find information about this trial. It is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. It's insulting. I'm sorry. I think it just shows where we are as a country. And that's in the shitter. So sorry for the language. All right. Love you guys. Oh, Lord help me. I didn't do any of this stuff. So, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. If you have something that you'd like to share with me privately, you can just click on my About Me, and you'll see my email link, that you can leave some information there. If this is content that you enjoy, please like, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, and it does help me get in front of more faces. And when it comes to content like this, it's important. If I'm acting stupid, don't share it. This kind of stuff, please share it. I appreciate it. All right. Love you guys. Thanks for stopping in, and I can possibly see you guys tomorrow night at 6:30, but I'm doing a haircut, so it's hard to tell. It's been a minute, so it might take me a minute.